Okay. Yeah, well, I'll end the studio in a second, but just let's make sure that we're live across all the platforms here. We'll wait a few seconds. And Encryptus, tell me if everybody hears us. And so that I know which windows to close and which not to. Everybody, there was a random glitch, apparently, before we go live that said, sorry, error loading, and start again, which means have to recreate the link across every platform. Kill the studio. No, hold on. There's still 2,000 people waiting in the other studio that we've got to make sure that they see to get out. Get out and over to new link here, and I'll give them the new link. And then I'm going to end this all. Boom. Okay, I'll wait a few seconds. And as they migrate, Dexter. So everybody, good evening. This has nothing to do with...
terminate and call back, by the way?
Oh, say it again?
Should I terminate and call back?
No, do it until we get the 1 minute. Do it until we get the 1 minute thing. Sometimes it goes. Just so everybody knows, this had nothing to do with Dexter Taylor on speakerphone from the Coxsackie Correctional Facility in New York State, and I will say it like that for the end of until the end of my days. There was some glitch, and Miss Scusi, but while everyone comes over from the other links, which are still live, but I'm going to end them in a second, we got Dexter Taylor on the phone, update, giving us the what's what from where he's at right now. I've been in touch with Dexter, a couple times a week for the last period of time, and I know what's going on, but I said you should come on a Sunday and let the world know what's going on. Dexter, please, for those who don't know, introduce yourself to the world.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dexter Taylor, aka Carbon Mike. I'm a software engineer, licensed ham radio operator, political commentator, podcaster, musician, and political prisoner of the state of New York, which does not respect the Second Amendment. So, as you pointed out, I'm in prison upstate New York, and we're fighting our case as a Second Amendment case, and glad to be with you again.
Dexter, so we talked about it a fair bit. This is you went to jail for assembling your own firearms in the comfort of your own apartment in New York State from components that you ordered online. Explain what you were charged with, what you were declared guilty of, and what went on in that courtroom.
My legal team knows the specifics of everything on the charging documents, but essentially it was that I kept and bore arms inside my own home without asking the state of New York for permission. So it was, felony weapons possession, mostly. And so, that's the moment the indictment came down, my house got raided. I was taken to prison. My legal team came to visit me while I was in there, and I knew right away I wasn't going to plead. So, there was a lot of administrative back and forth, legal back and forth. And when we were ready to go to trial, there was a lot of kind of chicanery part of the New York judiciary. And we ended up getting a judge who was switched in at the last minute, who was basically a third prosecutor in the courtroom. So it was obvious to us that the game was rigged. We didn't really expect to get a fair hearing, a fair trial at the trial court level in New York, and we didn't. But again, we are appealing the case. Recently, my legal team just started writing the first draft of my appeal. It's taken this long to get the trial transcripts. That was another whole administrative back and forth and costly delay and so on and so forth. And we're also looking with great interest at the fact that President Trump just ordered the DOJ to investigate civil rights violations committed by the government, specifically touching on the Second Amendment. Right now, I believe the DOJ's portfolio in that regard is focused on the federal agencies that have been violating the Second Amendment. But we're hoping that once they get done with that investigation, they'll turn their attention to the way New York and several other states are, again, violating the Second Amendment, depriving American citizens of equal protection under the law, simply by accident of where they live.
And explain this to people, because I've talked about it, but maybe they don't know. You were assembling your own firearms in your apartment, not based on, but with components that you were ordering freely available on the internet, having delivered to your place. You get raided by the ATF at one point. The ATF is no longer involved in this.
No. I got raided by SWAT team. ATF drove the search warrant, but they were just along for the ride. The raid was conducted by this is a state case, not a federal case. So New York SWAT team broke down. ESU is what they call it. Broke my door down. ATF was there. They looked around and said, "Nothing to see here," and they vanished. We never heard from them again. Which also tells you something, right? If anything had not been above board, they would have been all over me. Mm-hmm. The fact is that this is New York State out on its own, defying, as the governor said they would, the Supreme Court's ruling that the states must, the gun laws enacted by states must conform with the plain text of the Second Amendment and the history and tradition of the United States. We have no history and tradition of saying that a law-abiding citizen with no criminal record and no record of problems with law enforcement, anything else like that, we have no tradition of saying that such a person is a felon simply because he's creating weapons in his house. People have referred to the weapons I was building as both guns. I think that's a dumb term. I call them traditional guns, because that is actually the traditional way that firearms have been manufactured in the history of this country inside American homes. So that's more or less it. I mean, just for some background, I've got 30 some odd years in the software industry. And, I'm a sheet tree mechanic. I make furniture. I weld. I do plumbing. I do electrical. I build all kinds of stuff. And once I kind of became fascinated with kind of building weapons from 80% receivers, right away I started thinking about software and thinking about how I could turn this into a second career for myself. I signed up for Rocket FFL to find out how to become an FFL.
FFL, just remind that. FFL, for those who don't know?
FFL is two things. It is the federal firearms license, and it is the license holds such a license. So if you get a federal firearms license, you become an FFL as well. And that's why I signed up for an online course called Rocket FFL, because I wanted to eventually build a gun lab somewhere, in the woods of New Hampshire or some congenial place like that, and turn this into my second career. Because building guns is cool. Guns are cool, in my opinion, and I was looking to make this into my second career. So, New York State kind of knows that I wasn't doing anything crazy. You could forgive them the initial SWAT raid, but again, New York State seized my devices. They subpoenaed my email records. They have my phone. They have my computers, right? So they know I wasn't doing anything crazy. They know I wasn't espousing some violent political philosophy. They know none of my weapons ever left my house. They know none of my weapons were ever discharged. They know I wasn't transferring or selling or lending or in any way moving weapons. And the attorney for the prosecution at one point said to my lawyer in writing that if Mr. Taylor had applied for a permit, he would have passed the good moral character test. So don't believe me when I say I'm clean. Believe the prosecutor when he says I'm clean. So again, this is a political case. This is a matter of New York not wanting to let go of its lawless so-called gun control regime. And I just happen to be the one who got caught up in it. So now, that's where we are.
And we did an interview as you were standing trial, then you got swiftly convicted and then swiftly sentenced. The judge in the case, Judge Darkeh, it's Darkeh, she actually and literally said,
yes.
Don't bring in the Second Amendment into my courtroom. This is New York State. It doesn't exist here.
Yeah, the Supreme Court, the Second Amendment has no place here, is what I recall the quote as, yes. So, she went out of her way to make sure that my lawyer couldn't actually mount an adequate defense. It's one thing to say that trial courts are not allowed to consider the Constitution when juries deliberate, But in my opinion, she went way beyond that. She wouldn't even allow my lawyer to bring up the topic of the Second Amendment, and they tried to kind of stomp down my answers when I said when the prosecutor, I took the stand in my own trial, of course. When the prosecutor asked me if I had a permit, my answer was the obvious and truthful answer: yes, I have a permit. My permit is the Second Amendment. And that was a flurry of objections and what have you. And the answer was like, I'm not taking it back. That's my answer. So yeah, there was a lot of this is a politically charged trial. The judge in the trial is, if I'm not mistaken, is married to the Brooklyn DA's top fundraiser. Again, the judge was switched in at the last minute. The ADAs were switched in at the last minute. For the sake of optics, kind of everyone who saw this thing go down kind of understood what was happening. So again, we're hopeful that we're going to find some relief. Second Amendment relief is unlikely at the state level. This is New York State, but we are hoping that we get some relief on other matters, other trial irregularities at the state level. And again, the fact that Trump's DOJ is looking into violations of civil rights touching on the Second Amendment, that's huge. So we'll see.
And Dexter, for those who just tuned in, I see some questions. Who is this? This is Dexter Taylor on the phone from Coxsackie Correctional Facility in New York State. You were sentenced to 10 years.
Yes, sir.
How old are you?
I'm 55.
55.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. No, I'm 54. I'll be 55 this year.
Just so everybody can appreciate. 10 years, no prior criminal record, unblemished, otherwise tax-paying, hardworking citizen of New York.
That's right. And so I'm an able-bodied man. I can't work. In fact, I secured a job offer not long before I actually, not long before the end of my trial. It's like, yeah, I'm a senior software developer. I've been a software engineer for 30 some odd years, a data engineer for about 10 or 12. And yeah, there is no real good reason that New York taxpayers should be paying for my room and board, except for the fact that the people who govern this state do not respect the laws of the land, do not respect the Second Amendment, and do not respect the Supreme Court's decision, the Bruin decision that came down in 22. That kind of very clearly kind of circumscribed what the several states of the union are allowed to do in their gun laws. So that's
Dexter,
where we are.
So, and you're in there. You've got your appeal. It's going through the process. Trump has mentioned sending in Harmeet Dillon to investigate civil rights violations at the state level. What is life? I mean, I know you've explained it to me many times, and maybe people don't really understand this. What's life like within the institution?
Well, I mean, again, we've my standard response. I don't really complain about material conditions in prison. I mean, prison is a dismal and depressing place, and but that's not the point, right? It's like my complaint. First of all, my fellow prisoners. Many of them have been inside longer and have seen much worse than I have. So my complaint is that I'm here in the first place. My complaint would be just as vehement if I were confined to the Marriott, right? So it's prison. It's what it is. I'm lucky enough to be in a place where a lot of the guys are a little bit older, like me. They have programs, they have jobs. No one in my section is really looking to cause trouble, so that's helpful. And I've been able to find really the perfect job for me. I get to be a porter in the school building. I get to visit the library every day if I want, so on and so forth. So it is what it is. But again, the point is that we have a lawless government on our hands. And that's what has to
change. Can you also talk about what they're doing? You do work in prison. I'm going to ask a stupid question. What do they pay you for the work that you do in prison?
I don't know. I think, let's see. This job in particular, I think it's somewhere around 25 cents an hour.
25 cents an hour, and they're getting you to do what? They're getting you to produce goods
You have
for
1 minute left.
They're getting you to. Well,
No. I'm just a supporter in the school building, so I do light janitorial work and cleaning up the classrooms and the staff bathrooms in the school and the changing out the garbage and stuff in the school building. I just heard the one.
Yeah, we got the 1 minute.
Should I call back or?
No, we're going to go on the show. Let's do this again in another Sunday, and we'll catch back up, and hopefully there'll be some progress on your end. But I wanted to let everyone know, and Dexter, everyone in the chat is wishing you well, and you and I will be in touch. So keep calling me back, and we'll see what progresses over the next months under the Trump admin.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
All right, guys. Let me do one thing here. You get your 1 minute call, and then they boot you. Let me take this out here. And I was using the Take a Stand lectern guy's stand to place the phone on. It was actually mildly ironic, but quite fitting. Barnes in the backdrop. Before we bring him in, got a little bit of a late start. What I want to do first now, before we get any further into the show, is thank our sponsor of the evening, which is the Wellness Company. And because I had to set everything up again, I have to go back here and do this and bring this up right here. And now I can share what is the B-roll of the video while we talk about the parasite cleanse from the Wellness Company. Let me make sure I press play on it this time. All right, people, this is it. Could your health issues be caused by an invisible enemy? Fatigue, bloating, brain fog. What if parasites are the real culprit? Digging into this, parasite cleanses have been out for a little while, and I saw this here from the Wellness Company. 50% of Americans have parasites. They are everywhere in our food, water, pets. They severely invade your body, wreaking havoc on your gut, energy levels, even your brain, and the mainstream media system. They don't want you thinking about this because one great cleanse can change your life. The Wellness Company has a solution for you. Ivermectin plus mebendazole, both FDA approved for treating parasites, now combined in one parasite cleanse combo that wipes out many of these invaders. How you get it? You go to the Wellness Company, twc.health/Viva. You fill out the digital intake form, and it comes to your front door. You get a 3-month supply. Lots of parasites cleanses are all over social media, but they're not the gold level standard of the Wellness Company. Maha is officially here. The Wellness Company is making these hard to get medications digitally accessible so you can live your best life. Don't wait. Cleanse your body. Take action today. Let me just show you what the website looks like so that we can. Did I not share the screen the whole time? I didn't share the screen the whole time. It'll work one day, people. Let me just play you that. This is. I'm gonna. If I had a temper, I would smash through the screen. What's going? We're gonna go to share screen. Stop share screen. Share screen. Present here because I had 2 windows open. This one. Do we see it now? Add to stage because I got to add it to stage because I am a raging buffoon, people. Let me just play the intro because there was some informational here. All right, people, that was the video that I intended to play the first time, which I didn't, and I'll show you the website so that you can go there, get it, and get healthy, people. The Wellness Company, twc.health/Viva, and that is our promo code. We'll get you that. Link is in the description, peeps. All right, now we can bring in Barnes. I got to bring him in here because we're using different software tonight. Barnes, are you ready to come in? Sorry about this. Oh, I'm sweating like such a pig, and no, I hit go live, and it says error, wrap up and leave. I'm like, oh, no audio. There's no audio in it. It was talking about the benefits of parasite cleanse. Go to the website. We'll check. We'll get it afterwards. It's in there. Locals, Rumble, YouTube, Barnes. How's it going in Seattle?
Crazy. Still.
You're in there for the Kurt Ben Hoof trial. There was jury selection this week, which was in the context of other charges that he's currently facing.
So this is a case pending in King County in Seattle. at the King County Courthouse downtown, State versus Ben Hoof. Ben Hoof is a local lifelong Seattle resident. They are charging him with felony stalking and the crime of harassment. What's extraordinary is their basis for doing so and why they're doing so, which is what's so threatening to people's constitutional freedom and liberties. They're attempting to expand the definition of the statute so that if you contest, for example, parental custody, it could be reconstrued into a crime. That if you file lawsuits, that could be construed to be a crime. To give an idea, during the trial this past week, somebody other than Mr. Ben Hoof has filed a suit against his ex, Jessica Owen, who goes by Jade. And they were aware that she was going to be in court as a witness because she had been busy dodging service of process for this other case, of which Mr. Ben Hoof was a party, but he wasn't the one trying to serve her. It was somebody else that was a party trying to serve her. They did serve her outside the courtroom, and both the prosecutor and judge went nuts. They seem to think it is a crime to serve a lawsuit. They think it is a crime to have it filed. The judge attacked me personally simply because I was aware that someone was trying to serve process on her. This is how insane the city of Seattle has become. They are trying to make fighting a parent having contact with his own son is now a crime. A parent fighting for their right, a father fighting for their right to be able to care for and contact their son is also now a crime in Seattle. Filing lawsuits that they don't like is now a crime in Seattle. Suing judges and cops apparently is a crime now in Seattle. They are trying to criminalize the right to petition the government for redress of grievance, criminalize parents fighting for the rights to govern their children, and criminalize simply trying to defend yourself in court. It's incredible. I've never seen anything quite like it. There's no case in the country that has ever occurred that is comparable. There have been a few attempts at some variation of this, and the courts have in those cases correctly struck down the charges, but not here. So it just gives you a sense. I mean, the legal issues implicated in the case include the right of free speech, the right of freedom of association, the right of freedom of religion, the right to petition the government for redress of grievances, which includes within it the right of access to the courts, the right to file criminal charges or claim that someone has committed a crime to law enforcement authorities. All of that they're trying to, and of course the fundamental right to parent your child, which, to give you an idea, both the Supreme Court of Washington and the Supreme Court of the United States has referred to the fundamental right of a parent for care, custody, control, and contact with their own minor children to be the first and foremost fundamental right, and a right considered more important than the right to life itself. That's the words of the Supreme Court of the state of Washington. And yet here you have an attempt to abuse domestic violence laws, abuse vexatious litigant laws, abuse judicial power, abuse law enforcement power, abuse family court authority to strip a person of all of those rights. And the backdrop of it, you're seeing sort of a test case of woke authoritarianism come to the legal system, is the only reason why a court denied him access to his son was because the guardian had lied to him in the case. The court concluded that, quote, Mr. Ben Hoof's views were outside the Seattle mainstream on issues of vaccine mandates. Outside, that's grounds to take away a father's rights to his son, to even communicate with his son, because Seattle considers it outside their mainstream views. That's how insane this city has become.
Everybody can go back to last week's episode and watch the thorough breakdown of the details of this, but this week was jury selection. Did you get past jury selection already?
So jury selection occurred on Monday. Then there were motions in limine heard on Tuesday. There were the motions concerning search warrants and compelled statements on Wednesday. On Thursday was the opening statements and the presentation of witness testimony, a law enforcement officer, Detective Ellis, and then the principal complaining witness, his ex and the mother of their son, Jade Owen. And that testimony has not finished yet. But she was served by somebody else during a break, and the court went utterly berserk.
Yeah, served outside the court, right? Because you can't serve someone in the court.
The prosecutor initially falsely represented to the court that she was served inside the courtroom. That was completely false. He had to retract that claim. But the judge was like literally shaking. I mean, she went nuts. I mean, went berserk and started attacking me, she started attacking people in the gallery. She said that she could tell that people were staring at her. I was like, how can you tell someone staring at you?
I'm not mistaken, right? You cannot serve someone in the courthouse, but you can serve them on the steps or outside.
In the well usually is the if they're there to testify, in the well is usually where there's protection. Outside the well, usually there's not.
What was the nature of the lawsuit that his wife or ex-wife?
I have no idea. I had nothing to do with it. Someone had asked me, said, I know Mr. Ben Hoof hasn't been able to serve her because she's been dodging service of process, because a court, give the guy how nuts Seattle's become. They issued an order that said he could only use 2 different process servers. Now, by the way, it looks like the order is expired, but this is how lazy the Seattle judges are and how bad they are doing their job. The judge never signed the order. There's just an electronic signature attached to it. And guess what their excuse is for judges not signing orders? COVID. 3 years later, we can't sign an order or we'll catch COVID. That's how insane these people are. These are people that want to build statues to Anthony Fauci outside their front yard. So the order itself says it either applies for 5 years or 1 year. You get to guess. And if you guess wrong, you go straight to jail. Welcome to Seattle. If a lazy judge can't even sign an order, can't even tell you how long the order is supposed to last, you go to jail rather than the judge for not doing his job, not following his oath. But this order said he could only use 2 particular process servers. Couldn't use anybody else. And what has she done since then? She's dodged service. And evaded service. She lied about it on the stand. She said, I've always allowed my lawyers to take service. Complete lie. Because I'd reached out to the lawyers before and they said, no, they won't take service of process. So process service is often required to start a case, to get a subpoena served. You have to serve personally. The only thing that wasn't served personally was he wasn't served personally what he was supposed to be served personally. So so I have no idea what the suit is about. Someone had reached out and said they planned on, did I want Mr. Ben Hoof to be part of serving her? And I was like, no, we're not having anything to do with that. So you do whatever you're going to do, but I'm not involved in it. And because I mentioned to the court that we had nothing to do with it, and I was aware someone else was trying, she attacks me, says somehow it's a violation of my ethical duty to run to the court and say, Judge, somebody else is trying to assert their constitutional rights. Please stop them. Please stop them now.
So that you can
Seattle becomes subject to the Constitution of the United States. God forbid. That's how nuts it is. So it's just insanity after insanity after insanity. To give you an idea, the only 98% of the jurisdictions in this country would have never brought this case. It is a classic case of overcharging. It is a classic abuse of prosecutorial power, abuse of judicial power, abuse of state power to strip dissidents of their rights, to punish. I mean, literally, I was shocked when I read it, where you have Seattle court officials saying, oh, this man's views are outside the mainstream. Don't let him have any contact with his son. He might brainwash his son into believing something that we in Seattle know to be true, like how safe and effective the COVID vaccines are and what a great person Anthony Fauci is. I mean, this is the insanity that's up here. This is totalitarianism on steroids. And anybody who says boo about it, they threaten the lawyer, they threaten the individual, they threaten people supporting the individual, they threaten people even bringing their own separate claims. That's how insane it's got up here in Seattle.
I'd say I wish you well. You're scheduled to be up there for 4 more weeks?
The case should wrap up this week.
Okay, go. Okay,
so
good.
It should wrap up on Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll see. To give you an idea of the jury pool, you have a jury pool where there was no Republican in the entire jury pool. There was, literally none, zero. It was all Democrats. And the only question was, how liberal they were. And over half of the jury are liberal Democrats. Every single member of the jury strongly supports the COVID vaccine. So many of them, for example, I was not allowed to even use peremptory strikes, which I'm given by law, on a potential juror who said she strongly supported forcing children to take the COVID vaccine. And given that was the underlying issue in the case, the dispute between the father and the mother was about whether and if the son, who was 12 years old at the time, now 15, would take the COVID vaccine. And in particular, the father wanted to make sure the son got informed consent. It's like, if he wants to go ahead and take it, that's fine. But make sure he knows the risk from COVID is basically non-existent to him. He had no comorbid conditions. He was a healthy young man. And the risk to the vaccine, there were over 200 listed side effects. She lied to the son and told the son that there were no side effects, that it was completely safe and effective. And she believed that, by the way, she thinks that the CDC and Pfizer's long list of side effects are a conspiracy theory. I mean, a mother's so lazy she can't go to the CDC's own website, go to Pfizer's own website. This caused the son to be upset at her, for which she blamed the father. She promised the father, "Hey, I'm going to involve you in the vaccine process. I'll make sure he knows what his rights are." And then she lied. She lied to the son. She lied to the father. And that triggered the son getting upset and the father getting upset. So a juror who believes all kids should be forced to take the COVID vaccine is not going to be impartial in this case. The judge refused to allow me to strike her because she's Asian. Her being Asian I didn't even know she was Asian. I had absolutely nothing to do with it. But she was forcing unwanted jurors, into the trial just to try to make sure that he gets lynched. I mean, I've been through a lot of these political cases before, so in that sense, it's par for the course. But it is disturbing, and particularly what's disturbing is I didn't even realize until the witness went absolutely nuts about. Can you imagine going nuts about being served a summons? She actually testified. She would take her son and hide in the back of the house whenever process servers came to the house. And these process servers are like 5'2", 50-year-old women.
Well,
I'm so shocked. I don't know what to do. There's a process server. This is stalking. This is how insane these people. That's not stalking. It's nothing like stalking. It is an insult to every victim of stalking that this case has even been brought. It's an insult to everybody's ever been a victim of domestic violence that this insane case has ever been brought. It's being brought for ideological purposes. That's it. They want to force him. They've been doing this now for years. They want to declare him insane and force him into a mental institution simply because he pointed out there's side effects to the vaccine and that the vaccine doesn't work as one. This is how crazy liberal jurisdictions are. If Harmeet Dillon is going to do her job, and that's still an open question, and I like Harmeet, been friends with her for years, but what's happening in Seattle needs to be under federal DOJ investigation. The Seattle police need to be under that investigation. The Seattle prosecutors need to be, and the Seattle judges need to be under criminal and civil investigation for the systemic violation of civil rights of people in this community. And it's just nuts. I mean, you have a fundamental right to go to the courts. Indeed, we want people to go to the courts. Like, there was only one other case I was able to find anything vaguely similar. Came up in Florida about 20 years ago. And the Florida court said this can never be a crime. Free speech can never be a crime. Petitioning the courts for redress of grievance can never be a crime. Petitioning to protect your parental rights can never be a crime. That, in fact, most harassment and stalking laws did not exist in the United States for the first 200 years of our history. We created these laws beginning in the mid-late 1980s. And the predicate was supposed to be protecting vulnerable people. I know this as I was one of the first orders of protection lawyers in the country. Right out of law school, they had authorized under the Violence Against Women Act they created federal grants to pay lawyers. Well, it was $2,000 a month, in case you're wondering. It wasn't exactly glamorous pay, but $2,000 a month to go represent victims that needed orders of protection. And as I got into it, what was disturbing were two things. One was the the feminist advocacy was using it as a power grab. And they were refusing to distinguish between legitimate domestic abuse cases and false allegations. It was all about, let's take down the man. And to give you an idea, the person who inspired the other witness, the other person who was supposedly allegedly harassed in the case, is an extreme woke activist. For example, she thinks that she's against the white male toxic patriarchy, that the only reason why fathers have any rights is because they're misogynist and because the system is misogynist and that they shouldn't have such rights. I mean, it's the wackiest. You read her stuff, it's just wacky. But she said that, she opposed the prison system until this case. And now she's a big fan of the prison system because she wants to lock up her political opponents. To give another idea, so what happened on Tuesday? So Monday we picked the jury. Like I said, a good jury is just not them all woke in Seattle. I mean, you're stuck with a jury pool that's hostile ideologically and strongly disagrees with anyone who disagreed with the vaccine. It's only their degree of intensity. Then we get to motions in limine, and the court will not allow me to present any evidence or any testimony about what is lurking in the whole background of the case, which is that what the ex, the mother, started a lesbian relationship with this other woman, and the other woman is a prostitute who promotes prostitution around the world, travels all around the world for prostitution, wanted to recruit the mother into prostitution and porn, making OnlyFans, making other films, basically travel the country. The hurdle was she has a son. And so, because that son has a father who actually cares. So the problem was, how are they going to travel the world in their new prostitution business and bring their son with them if the father were to object? That's when they launched the plot to remove the father from the equation by falsifying allegations of domestic abuse. Because this woman is a domestic abuse person's advocate, because there's been a left-wing takeover of domestic violence advocacy, which is really sad and pitiful. I saw the beginnings of it when I was a young lawyer doing those orders of protection, where they would falsify claims and support people who falsified claims because it was all about taking down the man. And I was like, hold on a second, we're supposed to be here to protect people, vulnerable people, from people who get violent or abusive during domestic relationships that can lead to horrible things, not take down the man, not support every false allegation just because it's an allegation by a woman. There were plenty of instances where the man was the victim of domestic abuse, particularly emotional abuse. But in fact, as a general rule, women are more violent than men in relationships. It's just the consequence of it is felt more when men are violent. So so you have someone that's a trained expert witness, knows all the lingo and language, knows how to use it, wants to launch this new career. Well, guess what the judge ruled? The judge ruled I'm not even allowed to ask them anything about this. I'm not allowed to ask them about their pornography, their prostitution, the fact that his main objection to what they were doing was that they were bringing over clients and customers in front of his 12-year-old son. And he objected to that. Can't mention it. Can't even say a single word about it to the jury. By contrast, by the way, the fact that he once took a gun to Sprouts after Sprouts beat him up physically for objecting to mask mandates because Sprouts was not allowing people who had legitimate religious and medical exceptions to go into their store to shop. And they roughed him up before and tried to take away his permission, his medical note. So he brought a gun and just stayed out in the parking lot. And he was just like, please don't beat me up this time. I want you just to see my legal paperwork and understand where I'm coming from, and that I have some legal support. They arrested him for it, of course, because that's the nature of Seattle. The judge let that in, even though the ex wasn't there, nobody else was there. It has nothing to do with him. She was like, I think that relates to their reasonable fear. He once had access to a gun. That's reasonable. See what I mean? Even being around a gun is somehow illegal. And they want to strip people of their First Amendment rights, strip people of their Second Amendment rights, strip people of their Fifth Amendment rights. They want to attack your ability to protect yourself, your ability to go to the courts or the legislative process or the government for relief or remedy for you reporting crimes. They want to make that a crime. And take away your Fifth Amendment, your core rights to protect your child or to even contact your child. So which is nuts. And there's, again, no dispute at all that he's never harmed his child for a single minute of a single day in his entire life. Other than, you know what the harm was? Telling him the vaccine might have side effects. Telling him the vaccine isn't a vaccine. That's harm to the child.
Well, Robert, while you're enjoying the hell of a commie Seattle, I don't know if you heard the news coming out of commie Canada. We've got an unelected prime minister in Canada whose name is Mark Carney, who was just elected the next prime minister of Canada because he's substituting for Justin Trudeau at the stage. And I'm tweeting about this while you're talking because I'm trying to follow the news. Stephen Britton from our locals community sent me the results. Let me see here. It says fourth place was Baylis, the guy who I jokingly said nobody is going to remember who he was. He got 3% of the votes. I'll get to the punchline in a second. Karina Gould got 3.2% of the votes. Chrystia Freeland got 8% of the votes. And Mark Carney, the next Prime Minister of Canada, got 89.75% of the votes. Now, if anybody's asking themselves, as they should be, what votes are you talking about, Viva? It's the votes of the Liberal, registered Liberals who voted on this within the internal rules of the internal leadership race, 150,000 of them. Apparently, there's 400,000 registered Liberals. And from what I understand, just doing the math quick, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, and then the rest. About 150,000 of them voted. So you have now 150,000 Canadians who just elected a WEF globalist, climate crisis-driven, 3-passport carrying whore to the next Prime Minister of Canada. And that's democracy in Canada. We're going to get into the democracy in Romania. And we're now seeing the democracy in Seattle. It's, I understand the domino effect of the fear of communism infiltrating.
No doubt about it. I mean, they're trying to put him in prison for over 10 years. I mean, on this.
They're going to, Robert. They're going to.
Yeah, if they can, absolutely. They're going to do everything they possibly can to do that. And the only thing that stands in the way of them is his defense and potentially a Seattle jury. And then potentially higher courts in Seattle. But we're going to take this case all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States as if needed. The stalking and harassment laws, are themselves a stalking horse, pun intended, for taking away constitutional rights. And very early on, the people designed the American Law Institute, designed the model penal code, were very careful to say only certain kinds of threats. Well, remember the true threats cases that we've done here, that only those can constitute a basis of a crime of stalking and harassment. They're trying to undermine that here. They're trying to say it's a crime here, according to the government. It is now a crime of stalking if you tell someone you're going to report them for crimes. Can you imagine? Even if what you said is true, that the actual crimes they committed, because like in this case, for example, they took his car, they took his house, they took everything, pretended that he had no legal ownership or claim to it, got a bunch of liberal judges to start to side with them solely because of his ideology. Say, hey, look, judge, he's one of those people, doesn't believe in the vaccine, challenges mask mandates. You can just eviscerate his rights. So you have retaliatory judicial action and prosecutorial action and police action for his prior assertion of his constitutional rights and liberties. But the point of the stalking and harassment laws was never to criminalize constitutionally protected conduct. That's explicitly included as an exception and exclusion under the model penal code that every state borrowed from in adopting these laws. And now they're just trying to erode it and go back on it. They're creating loopholes for totalitarianism in Seattle. And the Ben Hoof case is the very front and foremost case that's going to decide whether they can get away with it or not.
It's terrible. I mean, it's despairing, but don't live in commie hellholes. And
that's a sad reality. A lot of people who grew up here love it here, who are just shocked watching this. I mean, some people are just, participating in the gallery. They get threatened by the judge because the prosecutor claimed they could hear whispering. No one else could hear any whispering. What it is they don't want. And again, I had requested to the court that, all this could, you wouldn't have to worry about anybody being in the gallery, just broadcast the trial. Court refused to broadcast the trial. Court even said, this is the case that you would never broadcast the trial. Well, judge, you don't get to get on your high horse and be mad about people in the gallery when the only reason why they're in the gallery is because you won't allow the trial to be broadcast outside of the courtroom. That's your choice, judge. It's just, the other thing is, I'm getting this impression in these liberal legal systems that they are utterly unaccustomed to anybody pushing back at all, which is getting even more disturbing. It's like, what in the world is happening to the criminal defense bar in Seattle? They're
It's an ideological. It's
politically protected. But it's like, I made a motion for mistrial, and you would have thought I was arguing something from Mars. I mean, like the court, it was apparent the court didn't even know what the legal standard was.
It's an ideological cleansing that's been going on for the course of several years now, maybe decades. They try to do it in Canada where they punish people for wrong things. They try to make people say like DEI affirmations in their business practices as lawyers, and they flush people out of the system. I didn't get flushed out. I would have been out regardless of this nonsense, but it's how they do it. So now the only people passing the bar are activists.
And they come across as trying to intimidate the lawyers. I mean, I'm not a lawyer that's very susceptible to intimidation, but for those that are, I could see how they would be scared to take this case. They'd be like, hey, they'll come after me next, just for defending the person, just for advocating for the person. But what's disturbing is I think what people forget at times about freedom of speech and freedom of thought, and the reason why we engage people who disagree with us is because it improves our own understanding of the issues, not necessarily because we change our mind, as Christopher Lash pointed out, but because we've always become much more educated when somebody says something we disagree with, and they make a claim. They're like, "Oh, what do? We go and look it up, right?" We become much more factually well versed when we deal with disagreement. What's disturbing in these liberal jurisdictions is they've never heard disagreement. It's like you're a judge in a criminal case and you haven't heard a criminal defense lawyer be very critical of what's going on. I mean, that's our constitutional obligation, is to zealously advocate for the individual's liberty. I mean, what is happening to the entire state bar in Seattle that these judges look shocked when basic constitutional issues are raised? It is. This case has been as disturbing as any case I've dealt with in the last 10 years.
Well, I'll be happy when you are out of that hellhole, because I do not believe that you're not fair game. You are fair game for them. I don't believe that you're not at risk of some sort of contempt order or whatever.
There's always that risk. Judges who abuse their power and legal systems that abuse their power, their only response to being exposed is to more abuse of their power, sadly. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. In the case, closing arguments could be as early as Monday afternoon, may not be until Tuesday morning.
Everybody, we're going to get on over to Rumble now. I'm a little bit behind schedule, but I want to talk about one thing before we go over. Robert, what do we have on the menu for tonight before we do this?
So aside from all of the extraordinary, unique implications of the Seattle case that keep expanding in their constitutional ramifications and scope, we've got the Supreme Court, and Trump, the one justice voted as expected. Sadly, one justice didn't, unfortunately. So we have the Supreme Court not stepping into the breach like they should concerning President Trump. We have the Supreme Court ruling on death penalty and other cases this past week. But we've got some a few other unusual legal cases out and about there this past week as well, on top of what I've been dealing with all week.
All right, now I'm going to give everybody the link. Get your butts on over to Rumble, but let me just read a few of these chats. And I just want the other breaking news of the day, speaking of democracy, is what's going on in Romania. Am I sharing the screen? I'm not sharing the screen because I've got to add it. Okay, here we go. Just to read these, we got King of Biltong, who's in the house, that says, looking for some healthy snacks to add to your diet. Try Biltong, almost 50% protein, plus it's packed with B12, creatine, iron, zinc, and much more. Go to biltongusa.com, code Barnes. Change up the code from 10% off. That'll be there the entire show. People go look for it. N. Menorth says, as I said on X, no Seattle area judge will be fair to conservatives or vets. She knows you exist online, Robert. Like she hates you. Kitsap is across the sound, and I had one ignore SCOTUS and federal law in regard to my vet disability. No attorney will rep, says Minorath. Forced name change says, I hope Carney's next. I'm not reading that. I knew that was going somewhere bad when I got to the first three words. Forced name change. Don't wish ill. Eric Pekulas says, did you guys hear that there was a woman who threw her baby out of the third-story building in France? I guess you could say she threw the baby out with the bathwater. I didn't hear that. We'll go look it up while we're talking. Crash Bandit says, thank you, Barnes, for coming out to my commie-infested state. We need help out here. And Viva, get your kids to help with the computer stuff. No, tonight was beyond my control. I even got Encryptus in the back, and we were we were freaking out. Well, he wasn't freaking out with me because I'd get frustrated. He doesn't. Romania, Robert, you heard what happened to Kalin Georgescu? No, you're on mute, but hold on. Did I? Okay, sorry. I don't.
Yeah, I was just checking. Someone thought that the local stream wasn't active. I thought it was.
It's because there's the old link. I think I shut that one down, but we're on the.
I got you.
Yeah, everybody's on the good one now.
Sweet, good.
Yeah. So Kalin.
I mean, I was surprised by that because it's one of the few wagers on politics that has not made money. I thought that after Vice President Vance's speech, that Europe would not be dumb enough to cancel another election or rig another election, and here they are rigging another election. It shows their degree of disconnect altogether. I hope President Trump gets inspired by this to get out of NATO, to start escalating and accelerating the thoughts that certain actions that he was thinking about anyway, because Europe is making. I mean, here you have the Vice President of the United States goes to Europe and says, "Quit rigging elections, or we're not interested in spending billions of dollars and risking American lives defending you when you won't defend the core values that matter to America." And for those again, they know he would win. And so they've illegally, again, this is the second time. He won the first time around. They illegally stole it from him. Now they know he would win again, so they're not even allowing him to run. And watch all the liberal democracy advocates say nothing about this all week.
So for those who didn't hear, Kalin Georgescu, you know what happened the first time around because I had him on and I've been covering it since I found out about it. They annulled the election the first time around because he won. Called him, accused him of getting Russian help on TikTok. Then they recently raided offices, took devices, arrested him while he was on his way to file his papers for the rerun. And now they've barred him from the next rerun or the rerun of the original, which he won and would have won again on the basis of the bullshit charges that they've leveled against him. And it's an absolute, I said, it's a rape of democracy. It's nothing shy of a rape of democracy.
And I hope the President Trump says something about it. Vice President Vance says something about it. And I hope they look at this as, look, between Zelensky trying to embarrass and attack the president in the Oval Office with his nonsense. The Putin is not a dictator as a matter of law. His power comes from being elected by the Russian people. And as a practical matter, his power in Russia comes from his incredible popularity amongst the Russian people. Anybody that studied Russia knows this. By contrast, Zelensky is an illegal usurper. The power he has, he was not given by the Ukrainian people. His term that he was elected to is long expired. He has declared martial law, suspended the freedom of press, religion, and speech, is kidnapping Ukrainians on a regular basis to die in a fruitless, useless war of money he has been using to divert to the personal self-enrichment of himself, his friends, his allies, his donors, his military buddies, and other deep state American allied ties. He is a tin cup dictator, is what he is. And he's a disgrace to anybody who believes in human rights or democracy or peace and freedom or any other core liberties that define what, when someone says, what does it mean to be an American? It's not that you're born within a certain contiguous geography during a certain time frame. Everybody knows what it means to be an American is to support the Bill of Rights. That is the definition of being an American. We have a unique cultural identity. Our identity isn't shaped by ethnicity. It isn't shaped by race. It isn't shaped by religion. It isn't shaped by gender. And it isn't shaped really by geography. It's shaped by ideas. The commitment to true constitutional republic that supports essential individual liberties. Ukraine and Zelensky are foreign and anathema to every single value Americans hold dear. This was the point of J.D. Vance's speech in Europe. It goes, what it means to be an American and what we're going to spend our wealth on, what we're going to spend our resources on, what we're going to risk human American lives for is going to be American values, not European values, not anybody else's values, but American values, because that's what it means to be an American. We don't care where you came from. We don't care if you came from India, or Asia, or Africa, or China, or anywhere else. We care that you love America. We care that you love the ideas and ideals of America, that you support the principles and precepts of an America. American citizenship is all about supporting the civil liberties and civil rights of the Bill of Rights that is established in America. And that is what Zelensky is a direct threat to. That is what now Europe is a direct threat to. We need to get out of Europe, stay out of Europe, let them defend themselves. Before long, they can all speak German and Russian. It's their problem.
I want to. I like the way you describe it because that's the way. That's what I feel is to be an American, and I sort of maybe have always been an American at heart. While everyone gets your butts on over to Rumble, let me just pull up these chats here before we end on CommieTube. Can you ask him about the correctional officers' strike and if it affects his safety? That is in respect to Dexter. The state prison guards have been on strike for a little while. He said it got. He actually said it's pretty shitty. Like they're not allowed out to take showers as often as they otherwise are. There haven't been any fights or violence, but he says, services have been down and they had to bring in, I think, the National Guard in order to replace the workers who were on strike. And he said it did affect things like hygiene, which is, or the availability for showers, which is terrible. Hammond says, part 1 of 2, is Tim Pool's opinion on advertisers like the wellness company that sell drugs to customers violate YouTube terms of service? And part 2, Tim thinks Google may be waiting to strike channels before 2026 midterms on their live readings by citing federal law on drug advertising. I've never heard of that. I've never had an issue with YouTube. I've looked it up and I don't believe that it violates any YouTube terms of service. You can't sell illegal drugs or stuff that is that you can't sell stuff that violates FDA rules, which nothing of the wellness company does. Would Biden's electronic signature on orders and papers be valid? Heard most of those, most of them had those signatures. Robert from Gorilla Strength Equipment.
The what's come out is apparently there was an auto pen, and it's not clear whether Biden was operating that auto pen. Like it's another example where there's a weird overlap with the Seattle case. It's like there's a place for the judge to sign the order, and that's where we have confidence that the judge read the order. All these orders that the judges haven't signed, and they've just attached like a separate thing that says here's his electronic signature, and like, how do you even know that was but apparently Biden, of course, COVID, I don't think was his excuse, was everything was being done by auto pen, the question is, who controlled the auto pen? Did he actually authorize the signature? And that's where there's, and then there's what ramifications are there? I can tell you as a general rule, the courts have refused to re-examine any of those things. So like when there's issues about whether Congress actually passed a law, courts won't get involved. Whether they went through their internal procedures correctly, courts won't get involved. They should, but they don't. And so consequently, the mere fact that the something from the White House said he signed it will likely be something that you can't get behind and challenge, even though we all know he likely never read it or reviewed it himself.
All right, people, get on over to either to Locals or Rumble. We're going to end it on CommieTube right now. Thank you all for being here. Sorry for the rough start. And that's it. We're going to talk. Well, I hold on.
Yeah, we'll talk about a certain judge that some of us predicted would be the great betrayer and great on the Supreme Court.
And this one just popped up right in time. Check out Judgment Star Trek Enterprise. It sounds like your case. That was from Lokeville Botson. Thank you very much. We're going to end on CommieTube.